Hour number 2 officially underway right here on the Early Line, Sirius XM Channel 159. It's Donnie right side. It's Joe Ranieri. And my guy, Joe Ranieri, volunteers for this work. He comes to work more than anybody else at the SportsGrid Network, and apparently might be coming to work a little bit more than he expected today as well. But that's not going to stop us talking college basketball here, rounding out the weekend with those Purdue Boilermakers, Joe. 80-74 victor over the Michigan State Spartans. And no surprise here, you go right to Zach Edey. 32-11. Come tournament time, they have a lot to prove. But in Big Ten play, they've been proving it all season long. 15-3 now in conference play after that victory over the Spartans.
Yeah, I mean, listen, good news, bad news here, Michigan State. Good news, you covered. Thanks for that. Bad news, you suck. There's just no way around it. That's pretty much Michigan State this year. But you know what, Donnie? I'm still waiting for them to put that run together, I think, like everyone is. But the reality is, when push comes to shove, there's an at-large bid with Michigan State written all over it. Unfortunately, it's going to happen, that they will bubble my you-know-what. The Spartans will be there when it's all said and done. If it comes down to them or any other school, Michigan State's going to get the nod. And quite honestly, this is a very disappointing Michigan State team this year.
It is 17-12 in the season, 9-9 in the Big Ten. And normally you'd say to yourself, like, wow, 9-9 should be easily getting you into the tournament. Not as strong a Big Ten as we've seen in the past year, which is going to bring up the question marks here that we have on the Purdue Boilermakers. As we welcome in the radio audience, you're watching and listening live to the Early Line, a Monday morning edition. It's Donnie Rightside, it's Joe Ranieri, capping some college basketball here. Purdue, with that win, again, 26-3. They're probably going to have the back-to-back Naismith College Basketball Player of the Year in Zach Edey, and rightfully so. But let me ask you this question here moving forward. We know Purdue is really good, but Purdue's been really good over the past couple years and has gotten dropped quickly in March Madness. I know we're not supposed to take a look at what they did the past 2 years, different teams each year, different teams they're playing, but your trust level in Purdue, is it good enough for a wager on a national championship?
No, it's not. Listen, to me, Purdue they're in that show me category. Like, I'm done. Matt Painter, and I've lost enough money backing Matt Painter and Purdue teams in the past where I'm like, they were the better team. But you know what happens, Ani, is that we already have the blueprint written out on how to beat Zach Edey and Matt Painter and Purdue, right? And that is, we watched Fairleigh Dickinson do it, right? Again, another one of these teams where, okay, what happens if they take Zach Edey out of the game? Or who else is going to step up around him to get it done? And we've already seen teams have success. Northwestern does it better than anybody, causing fits there to Purdue. So we already know how to beat Purdue. And when push comes to shove, there's going to be a team there where they're not going to be able to bully around, where they're not just going to be able to dominate. And then my question is, how much faith will you have in Matt Painter to pull the right strings, make the right adjustments at the half, and win the game ultimately? I don't know anybody that has a whole lot of faith in a Matt Painter coach team to be able to make those kinds of adjustments come March Madness.
They have a lot to prove. There's no doubt about that. But how do you prove it? Get on the court, continue to win basketball games, win the Big Ten, win the Big 12, Big Ten conference tournament, and then advance into March Madness and do some damage there. I'll tell you one person who's been doing damage for the past 4 years. That's Caitlin Clark, University of Iowa Hawkeyes superstar who steps into the record books once again. It seems like on a night-to-night basis, she's setting a new record, now becoming the NCAA's all-time leading scorer in a 93-83 victory over Ohio State. And this is how you get it done. LeBron James, you want to set records? You want to cross 40,000 points? What do you do there? Well, you better beat the Denver Nuggets. No, they didn't. And also, Iowa returned the favor on an earlier season loss to the Ohio State Buckeyes. A great performance out of Clark, who drops 35 points and 9 assists. It's no surprise here. The only question is going to be, how many points is she going to leave college basketball with before it's all said and done? A great performance out of the Hawkeyes and Caitlin Clark.
Yeah, the answer is more than anybody else, man, woman, child in the history of college basketball. That's ultimately what she's going to leave college basketball as. And listen, I mean, that Pistol Pete record since the late 60s, early 70s, I think, there at LSU has been a monster record. And in an era that we have seen over the last couple of decades of one and dones, Now you throw in NIL and everything else. And the idea that somebody good enough who eventually is going to go to the NBA or WNBA is going to be around long enough to score that many points. That was one of those records I thought would never, ever, ever be broken in this day and age. Except for, Caitlin Clark. Apparently she's like, yeah, hold my beer. I got this. And she just, I don't care who you are or where you are or what you play. That is a ton of points, Donnie, at the end of the day for a college career. It's out of control.
No, it certainly is. And also, not only do you have to be great, you have to be healthy. And your team has to win basketball games. You get extra tournament wins at that point. We'll see how long she goes in March Madness. And last year, made it all the way to the NCAA final before losing to LSU, which brings us to take a look here at the FanDuel Sportsbook's odds for the NCAA Women's Basketball Championship this year. South Carolina, -130. Talked about in hour number one, Joe. This team unbeaten this season. If they make a run through the SEC tournament and through March Madness, an incredible feat here for Dawn Staley. They're the favorite at -130. LSU, +750 price. And there's the Iowa Hawkeyes at a +850 price. So three teams below 10-1, but the favorites here for South Carolina. If we're giving you, Joe, a free bet here at the FanDuel Sportsbook, who are you splashing down with the futures wager on?
I mean, listen, South Carolina, LSU, better teams, I think, than Iowa. The best player in the tournament is going to be on Iowa. And already this kind of magical season, I don't want to step in front of that, Donnie, because when push comes to shove, you know what's going to happen here. She's elevating everybody else around her. So the fact that they don't have the better team doesn't mean anything. They have the best player, and when push comes to shove, I would want my money on her and the people around her in crunch time. So I would only look to Iowa here, and don't be shocked when she's holding the trophy on her exit out of college basketball.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible as it winds up. And also, I mean, usually it's like a footnote, right, where you take a look at the women's tournament. Because I always bring this up. It's like, well, what are we watching for? It's UConn. They're going to run through it. And if somebody upsets them, so be it. But nobody's going to watch because UConn is so good.
Right.
You now have really superstar talent across the board with 4 to 5 teams here. And also, that doesn't even include Connecticut. That sits at a 25-1 price here at the FanDuel Sportsbook to cut down the nets for the women's national championship. Look, it's never going to rival the men's side of it. But this looks like one of those years because you still have that star power with LSU. You would love to see Iowa and LSU, let's just say, in the Final Four before even taking off and playing a team like South Carolina. Many more eyeballs, and rightfully so, in the women's game. It's almost that we're at the point where you hope that momentum can continue because a lot of these superstar players are going to move on next year to the WNBA and graduate. Can the women's game continue this? And maybe if you have parity, that will be a great thing where nobody can run away with it. But certainly all eyes on the prize this year, and maybe Caitlin Clark can finish that fairy tale and get that ring on her finger. But the NBA is calling next. Coach Young is going to answer that phone call. We'll be right back.
The Lakers lose by double digits last night on the road in Phoenix against the Suns. The Suns get their first victory following the All-Star break, winning by 10 in covering.
Anthony Davis played 42 minutes in that game. LeBron James played 37 minutes in a loss. This is the same thing. It's like we're repeating this over and over and over. Sure, do you want to win these basketball games? Yes, but you sort of say to yourself, all right, at what cost do we have?
The early line, only on SportsGrid. The Bostonian versus the Book.
In the Big Ten, it's the same thing. No offense to you guys. This feels like the Penn State rule. This feels like this is the guaranteed Penn State to get in.
We need to find a way to let them in because they can't beat Michigan. They can't beat Ohio State. But if we make them a third,
they get in.
This
is the Penn State
rule. Be better than the West half.
Yep.
That 1 year that Lightning in a Bottle catches on the West half, we'll let them in too because they'll bring people.
The Bostonian versus the Book.
Guess what? Rock fight alert. Rock fight alert. Look at this Missouri-Tennessee score at the under 16. 1-0 Missouri. What is that?
Watched the entire Penguin game on Sunday. Been watching a lot of their games. I feel like we're seeing the end of the empire. There's talk of them maybe trading some big names.
Game time decisions. Only on SportsGrid.
Laying points on the road in college basketball is an absolute landmine. I would not do it. I won't do it the rest of the year. I'm done doing that because it just consistently loses.
I mean, 3 possessions in a 9-point game in which the opposition now is the clock, not the actual team you're facing, right?
Right.
And these guys are taking up shots. I mean, it's just like, that's why it's the NBA.
In-game live, prime time, only on SportsGrid. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid. Your 24/7 sports wagering network. The early line.
Magical and historic season in Lincoln, Nebraska continues.
He is the best player in the NBA, but also in the biggest moments where the national media is watching.
Newswire.
Something that we have never seen happen before with one of the iconic coaches in the game.
Pharrell, coast to coast.
The team covers. It's automatic. It's every time. Not sometimes. It's every time.
Game time decisions.
Luka is actually far more dangerous from 3 on the road this year than at home.
This game here tonight, you may want to consider taking as many points as humanly possible.
In-game live, prime time.
We got not 1, but 2 coaches fired systems in place.
Sports Rage Late
Sort of
Night.
has letdown written all over it. It's going to be hard to match the emotion that they played with the other night.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
NBA action. We are ready to roll right here on the early line on a Monday morning because so much went down over the weekend. So we need some reinforcements. I'm Donnie Rightside. He's Joe Ranieri. And joining us is the coach, James Young, to break down some of that NBA action. Before we get it started, was it a lovely weekend for you, Coach? We're now in the month of March. How are we feeling out there?
It was tough. A bunch of kids I trained, they lost state championships. But Donnie, orange and blue skies. I mean, orange and blue skies. I mean, how glorious was that last night? Oh, I'll stop talking because we got to get to the Knicks.
We do have to get to the Knicks, certainly indeed, here as we take a look. And also, I brought this up. We were covering in that hour number 1, that Knicks victory, which quite frankly was shocking. And most people, handicappers like myself, thank goodness I wasn't watching at that moment because you knew everybody ran to the FanDuel Sportsbook, started pounding the Cleveland Cavaliers in that game. There's no way the Knicks can hold up. Coach, James Young, get this. Brunson plays under 1 minute. The Knicks win on the road yesterday. How?
Well, number one, shout out to Deuce McBride, a.k.a. Deuce, who literally checked in when Brunson got hurt and never checked back out. 47 minutes he played last night. But to me, it was about – this is where the Knicks become dangerous, folks, because when you talk about they don't have that 1A, that superstar, whatever, they hit you in different ways. And if you look at how the game transpired, right, second quarter, early third, Achua kind of gets going a little bit actively offensively. Then the big Ragu, who took 14 threes. I mean, he was unconscious of shooting the ball. He gets going in the third quarter. Then in the fourth quarter, Bogdanovich, even Alec Burks with some big buckets. But you got to talk about the play of 2 big shots. Josh Hart, that sidestep corner 3 to put him up 6. And then the other corner, left corner, the Deuce McBride 3 that put the game away. And hats off to a Knicks team that really embodies that New York spirit. If you look at a guy like Josh Hart, Stephon Marbury, Steve Francis, this is the best number 3 since John Starks. And we know what John Starks brought, that grit, that toughness, that New York attitude. It was a phenomenal win for the Knicks, but I will go back to this one. And I've said it all along. I think Cleveland's a fraud. I think they've been a fraud the whole time. They were a fraud the year before they got Donovan Mitchell, where they had a great start and they couldn't make their way out of the play-in tournament. They were a fraud last year when the Knicks beat them up, and they're a fraud now. That team, even though no Donovan Mitchell, they're too dependent on Donovan and Darius Garland, 2 small guards, and then the problems in the front court in regards to having Mobley and Allen. They're too similar They need a stretch 4 in Cleveland, and it ain't George's Niang.
I love Nick fans crack me up, Donnie. They really do. Listen, this won't be the first time that a star on a team goes down and the rest of the team elevates their game to win one game. We'll see what happens here with Brunson. It appears to be, I guess, some good news. But if he's got to miss any more games, the chance of the Knicks doing what you just watched again last night, what kind of percentage would you give him if he's got to miss a few games here?
Well, it all lines up, Joe, into the schedule that New York Knicks play. I think the next game they have is Tuesday versus Atlanta, and so it's Tuesday and then it's Friday. So maybe he misses a game. It's a knee contusion, but knees are tricky, Joe, and I think they run the risk of really kind of going themselves into the play-in tournament because that East is really jumbled right now between spots, I would say 4 through 8. Now, what the thing is good about New York is, and I don't know if this can help them in the playoffs, is you're playing without 4 starters, right? You're playing without Brunson. Obviously, Randall's working its way back. Mitchell Robinson, that's going to be more of a conditioning thing, and OG Anunoby. If the Knicks get healthy, they become very dangerous in the Eastern Conference. Maybe not as good as Milwaukee, who's playing really well right now, but you obviously know it's Boston. Then there's a pecking order. Maybe you put Milwaukee and New York together, and then that next group of Miami, Indiana, Cleveland right underneath that.
Tell you what's not up for grabs right now in the Eastern Conference, the Boston Celtics looking like they're absolutely going to run away with this team. But also yesterday, 3:30 ABC, superstars all over the place, settle in and watch some good basketball. It was a rout right from the jump. 44-22 at the end of the first quarter, 38-16 after the second quarter here, and away you went with a 52-point win for the Boston Celtics, absolutely smashing the Golden State Warriors. Number one, JY, talking about the game yesterday where the Celtics just had it all over the Warriors, and also up next year for the Celtics. What do they do down the stretch, and what's their outlook here?
It's championship or bust for the Celtics, let's be honest. I mean, they're favored by $2 to win the NBA championship, so they have to win a championship. But here's the thing, folks. I mean, think about this game, folks, yesterday. The Celtics shoot 51% from 3, right? They hit 18 more threes than a team with the Splash Brothers, right? So you think about that, right? 18 threes, that is plus, if I'm doing it quickly, 54 points from the three-point line. If you beat a team by 54 points from the three-point line, you're not losing. I mean, let's just be honest. You're not losing. And to me, Steve Kerr went with a small ball lineup of trying to go with Dre at the 5 and went with 4 guards, and it completely backfired on them. Completely. Because they couldn't guard anybody. It didn't matter who they guarded. And they all got busy. So to me, it's really a testament of how good Boston is. But as great as they are, and you've seen this, Donnie, right? And Joe, they have those games when Tatum will give you a 4 for 16, where Jaylen Brown can't go left. Maybe Porzingis, who didn't play. That's an amazing thing. Porzingis didn't play. Porzingis gets hurt. Father Time gets up without Horford. So to me, they are rightly placed as a favorite to win the title. I do think it's a little bit of disrespect towards the defending champions that the margin is so wide between them, and meaning Denver, and the Boston Celtics.
82-38 at the break, Coach, and the Celtics come out continuing to bomb away from 3, which might have been the most hilarious thing I've seen in a long time yesterday. But it wasn't nearly as funny as watching, King James break his scoring record and then, losing the game. That might have been the most Laker LeBron thing I have seen all year long here, Coach. What'd you think of that effort there by the Lakers to finish it off?
I think Kevin Walsh is happy. Let's be honest. Tatum's happy. I don't know if Tatum even cares about the fact that the Lakers lost. Right? As long as LeBron keeps getting his scoring these records, Tatum, who took the day off to celebrate, who took the day off to celebrate LeBron winning, hitting 40K. I don't care what other reasons he gave everybody else on the network. We all know why Kevin ain't working today, is to celebrate the king. That being said, we have to really think about this, guys. When they play Denver. It is just a bad matchup. Styles make fights. They don't have a perimeter guy that could stop Jamal Murray. And I talked to Kevin about this yesterday on Game Time Decisions. I think they need Jared Vanderbilt. They need someone that can get some kind of stops on a team. And I'll give you one better. The Lakers cannot go anywhere far in the playoffs if Anthony Davis does not play like a top 10 player. I know he had 17-11. That is not good enough. He's got to be 25 and 15 because he's got to neutralize a Joker. He was pedestrian, and Denver rolled him.
Beat him up easy in that game, too. 10-point win there for Denver. And also, yes, LeBron James does break that record here. When I say record, it's not really a record, but 40,000. It might as well be a record at this point. How much distance is he going to put between himself and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar before it's all said and done? We'll certainly find out. Now, other things going around. Zach Wheeler signs a massive contract extension with the Philadelphia Phillies, but he's a teaser for you. An NFL superstar wide receivers re-signs with his team for 2 years. $52 million. Find out who that's next, right here on the Early Line.
The Lakers lose by double digits last night on the road in Phoenix against the Suns. The Suns get their first victory following the All-Star break, winning by 10 in covering.
Anthony Davis played 42 minutes in that game. LeBron James played 37 minutes in a loss. This is the same thing. It's like repeating this over and over and over. Sure, do you want to win these basketball games? Yes, but you sort of say to yourself, all right, at what cost do we have?
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid. The Bostonian versus the Book.
In the Big Ten, it's the same thing. No offense to you guys. This feels like the Penn State rule. This feels like
This
is the guaranteed Penn State to get in.
We need to find a way to let them in because they can't beat Michigan. They can't beat Ohio State. But if we make them a third,
they get in.
Third,
this is the Penn State rule.
Be better than the West half.
Yep.
And that 1 year that Lightning in a Bottle catches on the West half, we'll let them in too because they'll bring people.
The Bostonian versus the Book.
Guess what? Rock fight alert. Rock fight alert. Look at this Missouri-Tennessee score at the under 16. 1-0 Missouri. What is that?
Watched the entire Penguin game on Sunday. Been watching a lot of their games. I feel like we're seeing the end of the Empire. There's talk of them maybe trading some big names.
Game time decisions. Only on SportsGrid.
Laying points on the road in college basketball is an absolute landmine. I would not do it. I won't do it the rest of the year. I'm done doing that because it just consistently loses.
I mean, 3 possessions in a 9-point game in which the opposition now is the clock, not the actual team you're facing, right?
Right.
And these guys are taking up shots. I mean, it's just like, that's why it's the NBA.
In-game live, prime time, only on SportsGrid. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid, your 24/7 sports wagering network. The Early Line.
Magical and historic season in Lincoln, Nebraska continues.
He is the best player in the NBA, but also in the biggest moments where the national media is watching.
Newswire.
Something that we have never seen happen before with one of the iconic coaches in the game.
Pharrell Coast to Coast.
The team covers. It's automatic. It's every time. Not sometimes. It's every time.
Game time decisions.
Luka is actually far more dangerous from 3 on the road this year than at home.
This game here tonight, you may want to consider taking as many points as humanly possible.
In-game live, prime time.
We got not 1, but 2 coaches fired systems in place.
Sports Rage Late
sort
Night.
of has letdown written all over it. It's going to be hard to match the emotion that they played with the other night.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
College basketball action this weekend certainly did not disappoint. Now, we're going to take a look at some of these games that wound up with final scores that maybe you are questioning, or how do you certainly look forward to this and say, how can I make some money on some NCAA futures? Donnie writes out along with Joe Ranieri, and also Coach James Young back for a second segment. We'll start it off on Saturday. Down in the SEC, number 4, Tennessee took on number 14, Alabama. This game wound up Tennessee on the road winning 81-74. Watching this game overall, Tennessee certainly didn't bring their A game on offense, even despite scoring 81 points. 36% as a team from the field, only 30% from the three-point line, but did shoot 21 of 29 from the free throw line. A 7-point win for Tennessee on Saturday, Coach.
Well, yeah, you're right. Tennessee didn't bring their offensive game, but to me, a team like Alabama who excels in running and getting up and down the floor, Rick Barnes did a good job of actually slowing the game down and then playing it at his pace. Now, they lost the rebounding war 44-42, but I felt every big play, it was them. Like, if you think about this, they outshot them by 9 points from the three-point line. You go on the road, you only have 6 turnovers. That is huge. So they got the shots, they got the stops, and they took a team in Alabama who likes to run, get out on the open floor, high-flying, athletic, and you made it a half-court game, which is key, folks, because when you go on the road, especially this time of year, against really good teams, you want to take the crowd out of the game. How do you take the crowd out of the game? You take a team that wants to run, make it play half-court basketball. That's what Rick Barnes did. Great job by Tennessee. Huge win on the road, winning by 7.
It's also the mark of a really good team when your best player, Connect, only has 13 points and everybody around him steps up. I mean, that's on the road. That is the mark of a pretty good team, somebody you want to consider moving forward as we get closer to March Madness. And I guess we can say the same thing about Kentucky as well there, Coach. They had guys step up. I mean, they won 2 games last week. Both were way closer than they needed to be, or I thought they were going to be. But the bottom line is Kentucky is learning how to win as a team, which is pretty important in the next couple of weeks.
Folks, they score like no one's business. I mean, let's be honest. They put up 111 points. And I know it's been a tough year for Musselman, with the transfers and all that stuff. But still, 7 players in double figures. And here's the thing, folks. Like, when they put Bradshaw on the bench, right? And then you're thinking to yourself, like, well, Shepard and Dillingham, like, they're good enough to start anywhere in the country. I wonder if Cal has done this, folks, ready? To balance his roster between his first group and his second group. And they can hit you in so many different ways. When you have Edwards, Wagner, Reeves, Shepard, Dillingham, right? Even Mitchell, right? You got 6 guys from the 1 to 3 position who can get you 20 to 25 in any given night. So what does that mean? That means matchup problems. Now, to me, our fear with Kentucky, folks, is what? It's not the offensive end. It's the defensive end and their maturity. They give up a ton of points, but they have a style of play that they can literally just keep bringing guys off the bench. No one plays more. I mean, Shepard played 34 minutes. No one else played more than 30. You had, I think, 9 guys that played at least 10. So to me, you have Cal running guys in and out of the lineup. And then what that does at the end of the game, the last 10 minutes, now we can go and say, all right, here are my 5 best guys. You got to go match up with them. And teams have a hard time with that.
Matching up with the Creighton Blue Jays on offense at home, definitely tough to do as they improved to 13-6 in Big East play with a victory over the Marquette Golden Eagles. Now, granted, you didn't get that full steam effort from Marquette because Kolek didn't play in this game. Coming up next, Marquette is actually going to take on UConn. We'll see if he returns. But in this game, it was all Creighton here, and rightfully so. I think most people were just reading the lines going, you know what? Line's going higher and higher, but for good reason here. This should be a Creighton game. Creighton actually only had, Coach, a 2-point lead at the break here before hitting that gas pedal in the second half. But Creighton is one of those teams also that I think is lying in the weeds here for March Madness. Incredible in offense, superstar players, guys that can shoot the 3. Because if you're looking at their starting lineup in that game on Saturday, Shireman at 26 in that game, Alexander 18, Kalkbrenner with 19, but also Ashworth, who's usually a marksman, Coach, from 3-point range. Only 1 of 7. Didn't matter. They won this game going away. Creighton peels off Marquette 89-75.
Well, I wasn't surprised by the outcome. I liked Creighton before the game even started, before we knew Kolek was out, before Iguodala was out. I still liked Creighton because they play really well at home. Now, to me, here's a team where, as much as he was not the leading scorer, this to me is about Kalkbrenner. Ryan Kalkbrenner, when he wants to play, folks, you talk about Hunter Dickinson, you talk about Zach Edey, you talk about Donovan Clay, you talk about all these bigs. You got to put Kalkbrenner in that discussion of one of the best bigs in the country. But he has these games where it's like, if you look at the Seton Hall game, and the St. John's game, only 12-10. But look about the last 4 wins: 19-6, 23-6, 15-5, 21-6. If Ryan Kalkbrenner could be that 17 to 20 point a game guy, now you got problems, right? Because you got a guy that can step on and shoot the three, but is a loaded 7'1" underneath. But now, if you worry about him, well, what happens? Alexander gets loose. Shireman gets loose. I know it was off. Ashworth gets loose. And for a guy in Greg McDermott, who's one of the best coaches in the country, by the way, I think he's done. I think he's out of there after this year. This team at Creighton could be very, very dangerous in March because they don't turn the ball over, right? Only 7 turnovers on Saturday. They make their free throws, and they got senior leadership. It means a lot in March.
Coach, I want to ask you about Long Beach State. Oh no, I'm sorry. Houston was the Houston-Oklahoma game. If we could there, Houston. It took everything they had to win that game in Norman. Give Porter Moser and Oklahoma credit, Coach. They gave Houston everything they had, and unfortunately, and maybe the most impressive thing is the score and how Houston won, because they didn't win with their game. They went with a totally different game plan because they had no choice, and they still ended up winning the game. Very impressive by Houston.
Very impressive because they won a different way. You're absolutely right, John. If you think about this, here is the concern I have with Houston, and it came out. When Francis gets into foul trouble, they lose a lot because he anchors the back end of that defense, only played 12 minutes. The big Goodwin really worked him a little bit. 6 of 6, 5 of 6 from the floor, from the free throw line for 17 and 7. So to me, that is where you got that little bit of Achilles heel, as if they get into foul trouble. What do you do? Do you put Juwan Roberts at the 5? Or do you bring a guy like Cedric Lath, 6'9" freshman, who really doesn't play at all? He had to play 10 big minutes. So you lose a little bit when Francis gets in foul trouble. But what I saw a point, I would say late first half, early second half, LJ Cryer, good Lord, that boy got hot. And it's almost like every time Oklahoma hit a shot, Cryer hit a shot. So to me, they're showing they can win in a different way, but we know if Houston's going to win a national championship, it's got to be slow to pace down, defense, but they can't have Francis get into foul trouble because they get way too thin at the center position.
Coach, taking a look at some of these Power Fives here, winding down their season this week. Then the following week, you will kick off conference tournament week for the majors. And then away we go into Selection Sunday on the 17th and to March Madness. As we take a look at the FanDuel Sportsbook at some of the odds to cut down the Nets, Connecticut still firmly there as the favorite at a 5-1 price. Houston 7-1 and Purdue at a plus 750 price. You get down there. Look, those teams there at the top, Coach, not moving all that much around, but I've seen Kentucky 30-1, 45-1, and now 35-1 within the past week here. Baylor, who before they were taking on Kansas on Saturday, a 40-1 price, now sit at 30-1 here. Talk to me about some of these teams that you're looking forward to betting on here with a possibility of winning a national championship.
Well, I think that's the team to look at, but I think we mentioned the team already, and that's Creighton at 30-1 with the senior leadership. And the other team that I want to say concerns me, guys, I don't know what's going on with Kansas. They just look a team that was the preseason number 1 team in the country, completely disjointed. Don't look right. They lose at home to BYU. They go on the road. I know McCullough was back. They don't look right. But when you start digging around and searching, there's a lot of teams that are interesting enough to think about. How about Iowa State now at 21-1? TJ has done a great job with this team, and they grind your gears. They're kind of like almost like a Houston Light. You know what I'm saying? Half-court basketball, grind you defensively, and that's why you see their odds move up. But to me, I can't get behind Arizona 13-1. I can't believe in that team. Auburn, touch and go, but guys, these markets are going to move a lot between that 13 and that like 35-1. Depending on conference tournament and matchups, you're going to see odds move literally game by game.
How about this, though, in the ACC, Coach, real quick? Duke 23-1, North Carolina 23-1, massive matchup coming up this week. If I just ask you about two of these teams here, who do you trust more, the Tar Heels or the Duke Blue Devils? Same price.
Neither, to be honest with you. But to me, it's more about North Carolina because I think the play of R.J. Davis has been outstanding. Armando Bacot, we see what he can do as a big. I'm not a big believer in Duke. I think they're way too inconsistent.
By the way, if we are taking a look at your dancing shoes, it all begins today, Coach, with the ASUN tournament. So we finally made it. Day basketball, only a few days away, and away we go right up to the championship in early April. Can't wait for it, Coach. Thanks for joining us this morning. Take a well-deserved break here, but we'll be back to talk more NFL action right next.
The Lakers lose by double digits last night on the road in Phoenix against the Suns. The Suns get their first victory following the All-Star break, winning by 10 in covering.
Anthony Davis played 42 minutes in that game. LeBron James played 37 minutes in a loss. This is the same thing. It's like repeating this over and over and over. Sure, do you want to win these basketball games? Yes, but you sort of say to yourself, all right, at what cost do we have?
The early line, only on SportsGrid. The Bostonian versus the Book.
In the Big Ten, it's the same thing. No offense to you guys. This feels like the Penn State rule. This feels like
This
is a guaranteed Penn State to get in.
We need to find a way to let them in because they can't beat Michigan. They can't beat Ohio State. But if we make them a third,
they get in.
This
is the Penn State
rule. Be better than the West half.
Yep.
That 1 year that Lightning in a Bottle catches on the West half, we'll let them in too because they'll bring people.
The Bostonian versus the Book.
Guess what? Rock fight alert. Rock fight alert. Look at this Missouri-Tennessee score at the under 16. 1-0 Missouri. What is that?
Watched the entire Penguin game on Sunday. Been watching a lot of their games. I feel like we're seeing the end of the empire. There's talk of them maybe trading some big names.
Game time decisions. Only on SportsGrid.
Laying points on the road in college basketball is an absolute landmine. I would not do it. I won't do it the rest of the year. I'm done doing that because it just consistently loses.
I mean, 3 possessions in a 9-point game in which the opposition now is the clock, not the actual team you're facing, right?
Right.
And these guys are taking up shots. I mean, it's just like, that's why it's the NBA.
In-game live, prime time, only on SportsGrid. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid, your 24/7 sports wagering network. The early line.
Magical and historic season in Lincoln, Nebraska continues.
He is the best player in the NBA, but also in the biggest moments where the national media is watching.
Newswire.
Something that we have never seen happen before with one of the iconic coaches in the game.
Pharrell coast to coast.
The team covers. It's automatic. It's every time. Not sometimes. It's every time.
Game time decisions.
Luka is actually far more dangerous from 3 on the road this year than at home.
This game here tonight, you may want to consider taking as many points as humanly possible.
In-game live, prime time.
We got not 1, but 2 coaches fired systems in place.
Sports Rage
This
Late
sort of
Night.
has letdown written all over it. It's going to be hard to match the emotion that they played with the other night.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Talked a lot of basketball this morning, and rightfully so. It is the month of March and March Madness, and also roughly about 20 games left in the NBA season. A lot to look forward there, but there are a lot of doings here in the NFL. It's Donnie Right Side and Joe Ranieri. Let's hit some NFL hot topics here. None hotter than fresh off of the press here. Mike Evans, 2 years, $52 million with a $35 million guarantee to go back to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. He never hits free agency, or the Bucs get one of their big markers back. But also, as I take a look at, get used to this. 2 for 52, that salary cap going up. We are going to see a bonanza of salaries moving forward here, Joe.
Yeah, no, we are. And kudos to Evans, who it looks like, at least over the next couple of years, will probably, Tampa drafted him 7th overall in 2014. He's going to spend his entire career with Tampa, something, outside of the quarterback position you probably don't think you're going to see a whole lot of. And he's the only guy in NFL history to open his career with 1,000 or more receiving yards in his first 10 seasons in the league. I mean, the guy has been as steady as there is. I'm glad they finally figured it out, because Mike Evans should remain in Tampa and should end his career as a Tampa Bay Buck.
Yeah, and also, if you're going to re-sign Baker Mayfield, he's got to love that too. You're still going to have Godwin and Evans on the outside, so a chance to put up some big numbers. And also, who's to say they can't win that division there? Because outside of Atlanta getting a quarterback, let's just say they don't do anything impressive, but would it be Tampa Bay again? Because we know we don't trust the Carolina Panthers and or the New Orleans Saints. That's a good move here. Super Bowl, Richter scale type move? No, but a quality move here where it says you can wind up back in the playoffs, which last year they won the division and beat the Philadelphia Eagles in the playoffs. They could probably do the same thing this year. If we're talking other football news with a guy that might be returning back to his team or might not, 1 p.m. Eastern press conference. It's Jason Kelce of the Philadelphia Eagles. Now, in my mind here, Joe, it seems to be like, look, when you retire, you have the tears shed after the football season. You're in the locker room. That's where it's hot. Then you take a step back, but partying on the road with your brother, with Kansas City Chiefs paraphernalia, it doesn't ultimately mean you're going to retire, but it feels like all the wheels are off at that point, and it's time to relax and sort of celebrate. And, hey, I got my podcast and doing things. What are the odds today that Jason Kelce steps that podium and goes, I'm not done yet. I'm not going anywhere, Joe Ranieri?
It's so weird. I thought this was, the announcement was made afterwards, after his final game there, when he was on the field for, the entire time after the game as well. I thought this was already done, but it appears that they're trying to drag this through, maybe get a little more, just one more big press conference out of it. I'll tell you this, would it shock me if he decides and says, listen, I'm going to give it one more year? I mean, you're a Philly guy here. You tell me, Donnie, would it shock you if Kelce got up to the microphone and was like, I good thought, but I think we got one more shot at this. I'm going to come back.
It wouldn't shock me in this day and age, because again, there's a reason why he probably's put it off, because he wants to make sure what his decision is going to be, yes or no. But I don't know if I've seen where it's like, okay, let me call this press conference, step up to the podium and say, I'm coming back. Ask me any questions that you want. It just seems a little bit interesting. Usually that press conference means family's going to be there. Some teammates will be there. I'm getting my send off. This is your final chance for the press to ask me any questions you want. And I ride off into the sunset for a few $1 million a year at ESPN, CBS, heck, maybe even the SportsGrid network at that point to be a commentator. So I do not think that Kelce is going to be back here. I think he's going to retire, and rightfully so. If you were having thoughts over the past couple of years, Joe, saying, you know what, should I retire or not? Sooner or later, you're going to answer that bell one too many times and say, you know what, I probably should have just hung him up here. So I think he's leaving. I do.
But why? That's not how they framed this, though. That's the strange part about this. Because
give me the frame.
It's now going to be because they're saying, listen, I mean, his tweet alone was, all right, guys, no keg videos this year. I've come to my decision. I'm going to dress it at a if you're retiring, just say where you're retiring. I mean, what are we doing here? You're making it seem as if you had either A or B, but we all know it's B. And if you come out there and say, I'm not coming back, I'm retiring, now it's anticlimactic, because you've led us to think in this thing that there's a possibility you're coming back. Otherwise, just say, I'm retiring. I'm going to announce it this week, guys. Thanks for everything. I don't know why you're hiding from it then if it's retirement.
Maybe it's Philadelphia style here, like in Rocky 3, where, Rocky shows up, they give him the statue here, he looks up, and then like Debo Samuel comes out of the crowd as Clubber Lang. He's like, you fool, I told you, you don't want to give me a shot here, do you? So there he goes, no, what? I'm coming back, Mick.
Does he have a chance of coming back and winning? Let me ask you this. Do you think Philadelphia, do you think if he comes back, they have realistically, because I think really that's got to be his deciding factor. Why are you coming back to be in a 500 football team?
No, you're right about that point. And also, I'm telling you right now, you read the Philly wavelengths here. People are saying like, ooh, he could come back, but he's not taking a pay cut. So he's going to get like $17 million. Ooh, where can we spend that $17 million at? Because quite frankly, again, Kelsey is going to be in the Hall of Fame, one of the best Eagles to ever play. But if anybody was watching football last year, coming into that season, the strength of the Philadelphia Eagles team was built on offense, particularly the offensive line. Late in that season, they couldn't pick up a blitz to save their lives here. So I know some people are saying the grass is always greener. It's a lot of money. It's not as if he's coming back, Joe, and saying, you know what? I'll do you guys a solid. 1 year veteran minimum. Let's get this party started. Like, no, it's 1 year, $17 million that's going to hit that salary cap. So we'll certainly see
that would be a press conference. That would be a press. Yeah. I'm coming back. I'm taking the minimum so we can spend it now. Now that right there, the man would enshrine himself into Philadelphia lore forever. But I just think it's going to be anticlimactic if he just comes out there and says, after much pondering, I'm retiring. Like, no kidding. Everybody is the worst kept secret in the world.
Maybe, and also, if we get an odds market here at the FanDuel Sportsbook, maybe they can post up, will Jason Kelsey appear in a mummer's outfit, just like he did at the Super Bowl parade, and announce he's coming back, and also maybe retiring at this point. But we'll find out later today. We don't have to wait any longer on this. And if you were waiting, you didn't have to wait very long for a 40-yard dash out of Xavier Worthy's 4.22, the fastest man alive here, Joe Ranieri.
Yeah, and of course, somebody will overdraft him, and he'll be out of the league in 12 months. We see this every combine here. Like, congratulations, you run really quick. But what happens is, the guy just made himself a whole lot of money, did he not? By now holding the record for the fastest 40-yard dash. But if it's one thing we know is that doesn't translate into quality football players in the NFL. So somebody will bite and overdraft him because he simply ran faster than everyone else. It's just rinse and repeat with this at the combine, is it not, Donnie?
It really is. And quite frankly, I know I'm on like the opposite sides a lot here, but I just want to ban the combine altogether, because when my timeline is flooded by big guys running fast, and I say to myself, what does it matter that my D tackle runs a decent 40 time? I want to see how he runs over the next 3.5 yards, because that's all the running that he's actually going to do. But you're right about this. We'll see that and be like, hey, you know what? You did get drafted over Malik Neighbors because he ran straight in a straight line here. He's a quality football player. He did well in college. But I look at that and say, didn't you already know he was fast? So you had to see him run in a straight line with shorts on to make your determination if you should bump him up around. I love the combine. Some teams are just set up to fail if they fall hook, line, and sinker for that. Now, let's move over to the Dallas Cowboys. Left tackle Tyron Smith will be a free agent, unlikely to return to the Dallas Cowboys. One of those stalwarts on the offensive line for a long time in Dallas. Times are changing down there since 2011. How about that, Joe?
Well, I think the argument can be made, too, Don. Maybe this is a year or two too late. I mean, for all the criticism that Belichick has gotten over the years of being heartless, the reality is that whole idea of I'd rather get rid of you a year early than a year late. I think this is kind of fits the perfect mold of what we're starting to see here with teams like the Cowboys, who probably were a year late in moving on from this and getting somebody younger. But hell of a career, but it's, now he's past his prime and he's not worth the money he's going to command.
Some big-time falls in the NFL, and rightfully so here. Let's take a look for the San Francisco 49ers losing the Super Bowl. Now have a new defensive coordinator, which will be Nick Sorensen, but also a former Chargers head coach, I should say, Brandon Staley. He's also going to have a prominent role in the staff, which is crazy because you went from hot D coordinator to coach to now, the 49ers picked you up. Oh, you're the D coordinator? No. They're going to, try to find something for me here. It has a lot of those Eric Bieniemy feels where on top of the mountain with Kansas City, can't get a head coaching job. Let me go fix the Commanders to let me go back to college football in Los Angeles here. Brandon Staley, as long as he's not making the decisions, it's probably a good move for the 49ers.
I still am completely I don't understand what happened to Wilkes. Every defensive metric in the world said that guy should be back. And I mean, continuity matters, right? I mean, having the same voice, the same guys in there to build off of they weren't 30th in defensive metrics, guys. They were right there in top 10 and everything. And you just came up a little bit short against the best quarterback in the league. So I don't understand what happened there. It reeks of desperation. And now what? Staley, you're going to bring him in, for why? Because his defenses always were dominated the fourth. What am I missing here? Like, seriously? I don't get it unless he feels he has some sort of knowledge that is somehow going to help them better defend Kansas City if they're going to meet him in the Super Bowl again. The whole move is a little strange to me.
Yeah, Steve Wilkes, I mean, feel bad for the guy. He's going to get paid, but again, another one-year deal where he's out the door. And also, I love the look of this, too. You lose the Super Bowl. It's like, oh, you lost to Patrick Mahomes, who might go down as the best quarterback of all time. Yeah, defensive coordinator, You're just not that good. We always fall into that trap because I could see if it was like, all right, 65-64 final, and you didn't get a stop or stop him even one time to punt, but it's still Patrick Mahomes. He does this every year. Did it to the Philadelphia Eagles the year before. It's okay. Somebody else has to step up. They just didn't, so I guess somebody has to be the fall guy, and rightfully so. Now, if we're looking at the supremacy here in the NFC, still sits with the 49ers here at the FanDuel Sportsbook. Plus 230 price to win the NFC. The Lions at a 6-1 price, also with the Cowboys, shortly followed by the Philadelphia Eagles, then the Packers at 10-1 here. The Niners as the heavy favorite. Do you agree with that?
I mean, they again, if you're now the favorite to win the following year, and you fired your defensive coordinator, you gotta wonder what is going on in that. What's going on behind the scenes there? It reeks of dysfunction and it reeks of desperation here. So while I get why they're the favorites, there will be no money of mine will be backing the 49ers to win anything outside of maybe the first week or two of the season, because I don't trust them. It feels like there's more going on behind the scenes than we know about, and can't trust a desperate team like this, who ultimately, to ask them to do again what they just did last year, I don't buy it, man. I just don't buy it.
No, and also you're taking a look at the 49ers there, that price point here, plus 230. So you're going to wrap up that plus 230 heavy number for 10 months before you actually get paid off at this point. And also keep in mind, we're not even through free agency yet. Guys get injured here. So if you're really saying like, hey, I'm going to get a steal at how low could the 230 go by the time we start the season? 220? And better off, it might even go to 430, depending on if you get injuries in the preseason and or in training camp. Yep. Yeah, the 49ers certainly would not be getting my money here at a plus 230 price. Coming up next in a short little segment before we hit hour number 3, it's the Fade the Public poll. We're moving to the NFL with a question about starting quarterbacks here. Joe Ranieri, Sonny Right Side, ready on the early line. We'll be right back after this short commercial break.
The Lakers lose by double digits last night on the road in Phoenix against the Suns. The Suns get their first victory following the All-Star break, winning by 10 in covering.
Anthony Davis played 42 minutes in that game. LeBron James played 37 minutes in a loss. This is the same thing. It's like repeating this over and over and over. Sure, do you want to win these basketball games? Yes, but you sort of say to yourself, all right, at what cost do we have?
The early line, only on SportsGrid. The Bostonian versus the Book.
In the Big Ten, it's the same thing. No offense to you guys. This feels like the Penn State rule. This feels like
This is
the guaranteed Penn State to get in.
We need to find a way to let them in because they can't beat Michigan. They can't beat Ohio State. But if we make them a third,
they get in.
Third,
this is the Penn State rule.
Be better than the West half.
Yep.
And that 1 year that Lightning in a Bottle catches on the West half, we'll let them in too because they'll bring people.
The Bostonian versus the Book.
Guess what? Rock fight alert. Rock fight alert. Look at this Missouri-Tennessee score at the under 16. 1-0 Missouri.
Watched the entire Penguin game on Sunday. Been watching a lot of their games. I feel like we're seeing the end of the empire. There's talk of them maybe trading some big names.
Game time decisions. Only on SportsGrid.
Letting points on the road in college basketball is an absolute landmine. I would not do it. I won't do it the rest of the year. I'm done doing that because it just consistently loses.
I mean, 3 possessions in a 9-point game in which the opposition now is the clock, not the actual team you're facing, right?
Right.
And these guys are taking up shots. I mean, it's just like, that's why it's the NBA.
In-game live, prime time, only on SportsGrid. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid, your 24/7 sports wagering network. The early line.
Magical and historic season in Lincoln, Nebraska continues.
He is the best player in the NBA, but also in the biggest moments where the national media is watching.
Newswire.
Something that we have never seen happen before with one of the iconic coaches in the game.
Pharrell, coast to coast.
The team covers. It's automatic. It's every time. Not sometimes. It's every time.
Game time decisions.
Luka is actually far more dangerous from 3 on the road this year than at home.
This game here tonight, you may want to consider taking as many points as humanly possible.
In-game live, prime time.
We got not 1, but 2 coaches fired systems in place.
Sports Rage
This
Late
sort of
Night.
has letdown written all over it. It's going to be hard to match the emotion that they played with the other night.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Quick little segment here before we hit hour number 3 of the early line, March 4th edition, Sirius XM channel 159, ready to go. It's Donnie Rightside. It's Joe Ranieri. Let's get to the Fade the Public poll here. And every time we pick, Joe, a nice little NFL talking point, we seem to get the public's attention here. Take a look at this one. Who will be a starting quarterback for next season? There are 4 options on this poll at SportsGrid TV as follows: Justin Fields, Russell Wilson, both or neither. If we're looking at the public option here, it's both at 53.3%. Justin Fields just alone as a starting quarterback, he's the favorite there at 35.8%. Now, we got a lot to discuss in this, but your vote in this poll at SportsGrid TV, where did it go for you, Joe?
Oh, this is going to be brutal. I think Russ is just, I think he's finished. I really do. Because I don't think he is certainly not going to take any sort of discount anywhere that he goes. He's going to want payment. I think Justin Fields, and I'll take one even further. Not only will Justin Fields be a starting quarterback, but he'll be the starting quarterback of the Chicago Bears. That's my call.
Wow.
Here. So he'll be the starting quarterback of the Chicago Bears moving forward. So Russ, I think Russ is going to hang him up and begin his retirement like he should have done 3 years ago.
If we're looking at, once again, the poll here, who will be a starting quarterback next season at SportsGrid TV, Justin Fields the favorite right now at 35.8%, going head-to-head with Russell Wilson, only getting roughly 4% here. But it looks like the public does think that we are going to get both of these guys as starting quarterbacks next year. Now, the question about this is we didn't actually get which league it had to be in, Joe Ranieri. So maybe a move to the CFL for Russell Wilson can still qualify, and or Justin Fields. So there you go, expanding things. And by the way, 6% of the people think neither will be a starting quarterback here next year, particularly as we hope in the NFL. We got a big hour number 3 on deck. We'll continue to talk about the quarterbacks and much, much more. It's Joe and Donnie on a Monday morning. We'll be right back.